Hi, welcome back. This is Joe Rabil. So in today's lesson, I'm going to talk about the SPY in today's environment with MACD only. I'm going to look at the MACD to pretty much tell us where the last really good entry was, looking at it from a longer term standpoint, and now why right now doesn't necessarily conform to what we might be looking for. If we're looking for a bigger picture type of a buy setup, we might have to look for smaller time frames. I'm going to talk about what will need to take place for that to happen. All right, let's go ahead and get into this lesson, and then we'll go through the symbol requests that came through. So I've got the spider up, but on the bottom scale, I took the ADX off. I've only got MACD on all four of these time frames. And what I want to do is basically talk about where the spider is situated right now, just using the MACD to give us a sense of what is taking place and what to do or what we should be thinking as things move forward here. Let's just go back in time a little bit though and look at what took place late last year. We had a move to the upside. We finished the bear market. We had a move to the upside that had a strong move into middle part of the year. And then we pulled back as we moved into the fourth quarter and found support at the 18 and the 40. And the MACD on the monthly chart found support at the signal line. If you notice, the signal line was declining and then at that point it was rising. So we had a pinch pattern, one of the patterns from my book and my courses. And so when we get a dip in this, right, and we get a dip in the MACD line, we should be on the lookout for an ensuing rally if we can take out a prior bar's high. Now, while that is taking place on that dip, we can go over here and see that was actually taking place on this time frame was a test of the zero line. All right. Now, this is an important thing that I'm always on the lookout for. If you go back through any old lessons on MACD, I talk about this zero line and how important it is to me. And what we want to do is be on the lookout for signs of reversal at the zero line or any kind of a signal. So when I get this combination, this is one of my favorite combinations in MACD, is when we get a pinch play on the higher time frame and then the lower time frame is the zero line reversal. We want to be on the lookout for this whenever this in any time frame in any market. If you can get two consecutive time frames doing this, we want to be on the lookout for that. It's a great trading pattern. All right, now notice what we're doing right now though. So we got the benefit of that pinch play and we moved up for 5 straight months. Now we've got separation between the current price and the 18. You see the difference between this here where we're sitting on trend support and here where we're stretched away? Now, that's not necessarily a negative, but it is if you want to be a buyer. It's not exactly a timely time to enter if we're stretched away. We want to look for entries at or near that 18 as much as possible. All right. Now, if you notice what the MACD is doing, it's sort of stretched away from the signal line as well. We got a pinch in here and we want to look for some form of a hesitation, pause, drift or something like that that causes us to pinch in a little bit closer to the signal line. And that would really be kind of like the next potential signal. On the weekly chart, instead of testing the zero line, we're actually crossing down through the signal line to the signal line to the downside. So we're not near the zero line and we're crossing down through the signal line. So to me, this has got a little bit of risk in it right now. You see the difference between the signal here combined with this versus where we are right now and this right here. All right, so then I have some options, right? The only way I can play this is I can't really do it off the bigger time frame, but I could go down to a smaller time frame and see if there's any kind of a pattern that I could play. The problem is that on this time frame, both the MACD and the signal line have crossed down through zero. So if I'm going to play this, I have to play this separation and sort of look for some kind of a reversion trade using the hourly time frame. We did get divergence. You could be potentially trying to play this for a rally back to the 18 on this time frame, and this to pinch in to the towards the signal line, which is now to the downside. All right, so you could be playing a counter trend trade, but only off of the hourly right now into the daily resistance. All right, now I'm using the MACD solely to make these determinations because I can't take a long trade right now, at least, unless I get some kind of a test and then a pullback where I get at least some form of test here so I know what's really taking place. I don't really have a trade on this time frame until we get a little bit of a pinch. So there's no setup here, again, unless I maybe want to play a little bit of a reversion trade to the downside. The only way I can do that, if I want to play this as a reversion trade back to the 18, and while this is pinching in, I now have to get a signal on the daily chart for this pinch play. And then I could potentially short the pinch play for a play into support on this time frame. And that would coincide with what I'm seeing here because this is rolled over. So you have to use these consecutive time frames together. I can see these two together aren't offering me an entry unless I want to play something to the downside. But then if I'm going to do that, I have to use the daily time frame, this rally on the daily time frame. And for all I know, this is going to keep rallying and this is going to cross over. If that were to happen, then what I would do is look for the first pullback and then play it off the hourly for a trade to the upside. All right. So I don't have to make a determination. If you notice, I'm not going to make a lot of major calls in the market because I don't need to. I don't have to make a major call in the market because I'm going to follow. I'm essentially following what the momentum in the different time frames are telling me. Right now, there's too much weakness here to be a buyer for a play to the upside. I need confirmation. We're going to need a move cross. We're going to need this to cross over and then hold on a pullback. I don't really have a trade to the upside on this time frame because we've crossed over to the downside. Now, if it does rally up and this doesn't cross over and I want to play a little short trade to trend support on the monthly, I do have that potential. I might have a trading play to the downside coming up, but for this to be a long setup, I'm going to need a lot of strength on this rally to confirm a reversal is starting to take place, and then I can look to play the first pullback. And that's exactly what I would be doing on this time frame now. This has to rally up and then come back down. So both of these time frames are telling me the same thing, especially when I look at them in reference to MACD. So I want you to think in these terms. Don't necessarily have to guess. We use the smaller time frames to confirm the lower time frames. And right now, it just makes more sense that we spend a little bit more time consolidating, setting up this monthly chart. Now, it's possible we could take off from here and it could just go. I'm not saying that that won't happen. I'm just saying that that's not the high probability play right now. I think the high probability play is that we spend more time consolidating on this time frame and until we see improvement by getting back above the 18 and MACD getting back above its signal line. I think you have to be very, very careful about playing long side trades on the SPY. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button and also subscribe. Also, if you have an interest in learning more about my services, you can go to rabilstockresearch.com. The services page has all the information on my courses as well as the individual package. And then if you can go to /book to get any information on the book itself, which I think is a good starting point. So just to let you know, before I get going here, the Stock Talk is now going to be on Wednesdays. So obviously it's being put out today. I'm going to continue to do that on Wednesdays just so you're aware. So if you have symbol requests, get them in, before Wednesday, Tuesday night, something like that at the very latest. Okay, so I did the lesson on MACD yesterday afternoon, and I do want to bring you up to date on this just based on what we've seen. I've got all the charts up in 4 time frames, but I wanted to show with the ADX, but some things that have developed here. It's basically playing out as discussed. We have the overrun on this time frame. So we have this sort of pinch play developing. We've got enough strength in the ADX to suggest that we get some kind of a retest here. But on the way up, we got overrun on this time frame. You see how we overran to the downside and now we've overrun to the upside. In the process of doing that, we should expect a little bit more of a complex reversal rather than just a quick trend line break and drop to the downside. So while we're looking for something a little bit more complex on the weekly, right, where we come back down and test because we got overrun on the weekly chart, we do respect the strength of the ADX on this time frame, and the bias is still to the upside. It's just the MACD is telling us to be careful of the timing. But now look at what's going taking place on the hourly. The hourly is telling us to do the same thing. Don't be in a huge hurry to put a short on or something like that until we get a little bit more of a confirming signal on the hourly. All right, that's the update there. Let's go ahead and go to the QQQ, which is playing out in a very similar manner. The only difference is we don't have overrun on the hourly chart. We do clearly have a bearish signal here, and we're rallying up into resistance. So, I mean, I think the odds favor with look at the big red bar on the QQQ, and we're coming back to the midpoint of that bar. So this is actually a really important level to be on the lookout for, how this reacts right here. Now, I know there's some earnings coming out of these big stocks, the big guys, that are going to have an effect on this, but we're at a very, very key level. I think if we can push through the midpoint of this bar, then we have to have respect that, it could take the form of some kind of a stronger rally, higher low, and then turn back to the upside. So kind of be on the lookout for how this reacts at the 18-week and at the midpoint of the big red bar. But based on this index, the QQQ, I think, the possibility is that we could have something a little bit quicker, especially if we form a higher low. We could get a trend line break, and we could take that as a down signal back to bigger support to the downside. So we need to be on the lookout for that, especially because of what's taking place here. We're losing on a relative basis for the first time in over a year now. And I think that plays a pretty big role along with this big red bar showing up. Now, we do have RSI that got deeply oversold. How this plays out is going to be critical. There's so many counteracting signals right now taking place. RSI is a little bit more bullish, while the MACD signs are a little bit more bearish, but we do have strong momentum on the weekly. And we don't have that much strength to the sellers on the daily. So it's somewhat of a mixed bag. We're going to have to watch and see how it plays out. Don't have any preconceived notions. Let the market tell you what to do. If we get a signal on the short side and you want to play that, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I still think the bigger picture pattern is still okay, though. Okay, let's look at the IWM now. We do have an RSI signal showing up here we got an oversold reading and the RSI 20 stayed above. And as I've been saying, if we get that signal, then we could start to see improvement on a relative basis. But I don't like these three big red bars. You see how we got blood red three weeks in a row, and we have this overrun, and we don't have that much strength in the ADX on this time frame. So I'm inclined to think that we get some, maybe if this wants to turn up, it rallies up, midpoint, rally, come back down, do something like that. That would be like the bullish scenario I would be expecting. If it's going to play out bullishly, that's sort of what I would be on the lookout for, as opposed to this kind of rocket shipping straight up to the upside. All right, let's look at Adobe. I think this is a really good stock to kind of at least kind of explain how I would look at a reversion to the mean trade, because we're coming into pretty significant support at the 18-month. We've dropped down for 3 straight months. We're still in pretty good shape on both the MACD and the ADX on the monthly. All right. Now, I'm going to show you how this is more of a trading play, even though I'm looking at trend support on the monthly. Look at how on the weekly chart, we're stretched away from the 18-week, but also notice how we got this big red bar here. We consolidate, and then we've come back down, but the size of these bars are not that big. Now, we have overrun. There's overrun here. So I'm not looking for some kind of a big, strong move to the upside, but you could easily get an interim rally here. All right. The same thing holds true with the ADX. Both of these are not, they're telling us that the odds of this turning on a dime and going straight up are pretty low. However, we could get an interim rally. There's nothing in here that's telling us that we can't do that. We're stretched away, and there's not a lot of downside. These aren't big momentum bars to the downside. So then we go and we look at the daily chart. All right. Now, again, we're making moves to the downside, and we got momentum confirmation using ADX, but look at what's going on the MACD daily. The MACD daily is starting to show signs of momentum divergence, which could lead to a rally to the upside. But how do we play this? And if I'm going to do this and I've got momentum confirmation to the downside here, but we're stretched away, and I've got momentum confirmation to the downside here based on the ADX, but I've got a little divergence developing. I now need to go to the hourly chart and look at what happened. We went to a new low here and made a new low here, but look at how the ADX did not confirm. We did not get a move above 25 in the blue line. So we can be on the lookout for reversal, and we could play a higher low pullback for a trade to the upside that fills in a little bit more of this 18-week line, towards this 18-week line. So it actually could be an interesting trading play if I wanted to do that. Now, the target is the 18-40-week combo here. It's not, I don't think I would use the 18-day. It really wouldn't be worth it. And we're getting momentum divergence here, and we're getting momentum divergence here. We already have a little bit developing on the hourly MACD. So you could play this for a move to the upside. You're just going to have to be nimble as it works its way back up into resistance. So something to be on the lookout for. I wouldn't play this for a big trend. Like if I wanted to play this for a big move, I wouldn't do that, but I would consider it for a trading play. Okay, let's look at something like XOM, because this is showing a lot of improvement. We've gotten back above the 18-month line. That line is still rising above a rising 40. We've got good momentum conditions based on the ADX. Look at what's going on the MACD and the ADX on the weekly. We had a low ADX condition in place, and now we're sort of breaking out or trying to break out, and we're getting new momentum to show up on both MACD and ADX. So ADX is kind of important here because it's been low for a long time, about a year, and now it's moving to the upside. Now, here's the problem with buying this breakout. You see how many weeks in a row we were up? So that's why I'd want to see this consolidate like it's been, and I'd actually love to see this form one more test or ABC type of a look. And we've got earnings coming, so I'd probably let the earnings come, see if that doesn't cause this to drop a little bit, and maybe offer the next buying opportunity. So I'm watching this. I think this actually looks pretty attractive, but I also don't necessarily want to buy this right before earnings, as it's still sort of extended away on the from the 18-week line. All right, so we're looking at a pullback that I think looks pretty attractive when you look at it on a weekly. Let's look at this next stock, CRM. Do you see how this is not the type of pullback we want to be buying, right? We want to buy the right kind of weakness. And if I'm playing this off the weekly and the daily, I don't like this pattern. I think this is too strong of a decline. We've got overrun here. We still have a bigger picture pattern that's totally fine. But what this is saying is this isn't timely. It's not a timely setup. We're probably going to consolidate for a while. That gives us more time. And it potentially might set up on the monthly as it pulls back, while this spends a lot more time consolidating, and maybe even MACD comes back down to the 0 line and the ADX drops down to 25 or lower. Okay, so those are the kinds of things I think I'd be looking for on this Salesforce pattern. It's just, it just looks to me like it needs to come in and spend more time correcting. Remember, we were talking about this rallying up into this big resistance area up at the prior high in 2021, and it needed to fill in some. It's just starting to do that now. Be patient with this. I don't think you have to be in a rush. Okay, look at BAK. So this is an interesting little pattern that's developing. Let's start with the monthly chart. I know that a lot of you don't want to trade off of a monthly chart. I'm not trying to convince you to do that. What I want to do is use the monthly chart to give us sort of a backdrop as to what's taking place. First of all, we got a lot of support down here. This is huge support. The second thing is when I draw my trend line and do my analysis, I can draw in my trend line like this. We have the 1, we have the 2. The 3 is way up here. All right. Do I want to wait for that? I don't necessarily need to wait for that. I've created the 1. I've created the 2. I've got a little bit of improvement in MACD. Don't really have the improvement in the ADX buyers, but I can also see that sellers were not all that strong. Even though we went through a pretty long decline to the downside, the DI negative, red DI, never got through 25 to the upside. So I've got enough things going right here. Now I want to go to the weekly chart and make a determination as to what the entry would be. Had a nice green bar to the upside, but we've kind of erased that. You notice how we didn't hold the midpoint of that? We've come all the way down to the low end of it. So we've lost a little bit of momentum when I look at it in those terms. I almost want to see this come back up through the high of this green bar in a way. But we don't have to necessarily do that, but it is something we could be on the lookout for. If we make a nice higher low, if we can form a nice higher bottom, with green kicking in here. I mean, you could look at this as a pinch play, but I think it's a little aggressive just because of how quickly this dropped off and again erased that move to the upside. So I probably want to at least get this to close above the low bar, maybe even show a little buy signal on the daily chart, but definitely one I would keep on my watch list because I think what's taking place is really intriguing from that standpoint. All right, now you can take the trade above here. You don't have to wait for it to come back above this high, which would confirm the monthly 1, 2, 3. But you could wait for it to do this and complete sort of the breakout and higher low on this time frame. Now let's look at what's going on this EMX. So we got pretty nice improvement. This was so first of all, you got to look at the setup. Low ADX and low ADX. All right. We always want to be on the lookout for this, especially when a stock has been quietly working sideways. Now, if you notice, we went to a marginal new low and then didn't have any follow through from that. Now we're showing a lot of strength in the volume and look at what the ADX is doing. Do you see how this is breaking out from this low ADX condition? Right. So this is pretty attractive from that standpoint. I'm looking for a higher low to form in this stock. That'd probably be what I'd be on the lookout for. Now, I don't know if I would be taking the daily setup here. I would probably want this to set up on the weekly just based on it's a monthly weekly setup to me. Don't really see this as attractive as a weekly daily. I think that subjects you to a little bit more risk of being stopped out in my opinion. So let this consolidate a little bit more. Use the weekly, I think was what I'd be watching. Okay, look at PLTR. So notice what's been going on here. You've got the breakout pattern here. This was a low ADX pattern, and that started to move to the upside. Strong ADX, and then we get our pullback. All right, now we move again to the upside, make another marginal new high, pull back, but the moving averages keep rising. This is still strong enough to trend. We make another move, we get confirming evidence, and now we pull back. You see how these pullbacks are where we want to be doing this, at or near the 18 MA. So now we have to look at it from as a weekly daily pullback into trend support on the monthly. You see how this is the breakout level. So I don't have a problem with this, but look at how rough the selling was based on the MACD. We clearly overran here. Now, we don't have a lot of selling strength based on the sellers using negative DI. So I'm willing to do this, but I've got to get a higher low. I've got to get not just a trend line break, but I need a higher low to form or maybe a potential pinch play, depending on how strong the move is to the upside. So something I would consider, but I think we have to look for a little bit more of a complex reversal now that it's pulled back as much as it has. Thanks for watching the show. If you have any stock requests, send them to stocktalk@stockcharts.com and I'll try and get them in on the next show. And also remember that the show is going to be on Wednesdays going forward. And then if you have an interest in learning more about MACD and ADX and multiple time frame trading, I would go to my YouTube channel called Invest Like a Pro. Have a great week and we'll see you next time.